Part 40. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 391. Chapter 391, Clearing the Place. Luoluo's manager also said repeatedly, "I'm sorry, I'm really sorry for causing trouble to you all." He looked at Xiaoling and then at Xiaoyu and the others, making it clear that neither party wanted to offend. This makes Xiaoling very uncomfortable, and that's it for everyone else. As a manager, how can you not be oriented toward your own artists, but instead follow the wind and turn your elbows outward? However, it's very strange. She walked away a few steps and whispered to Chu Chen, "I thought Xiaoyu had lost power ever since it was exposed that Xiaoyu insulted her sister a long time ago. Pei Xian's attitude towards her has not been as good as before." The most obvious manifestation is as an agent, Chu Chen no longer accompanied him in and out, but left all his daily work to his subordinates. Xiaoling always thought that Xiaoyu could only be regarded as an artist of some status in the emperor, but she didn't expect that there were still so many people fawning over her. Chu Chen smiled, the boss has never been bad to her. If someone else had caused so many troubles like Xiaoyu, she would have died several times, but Pei Xian just cancelled some of her privileges. Anyone with a discerning eye, it can be seen that in Pei Xian's heart, Xiaoyu is still different. What's more, Chu Chen continued, recently, the boss has been much kinder to her. Recently? Since you came to the boss? Xiaoling was startled for a moment, and suddenly understood. Pei Xian already knew that she was Xiaoling, and he didn't know about the quarrel between her and Xiaoyu. He just thought that she still loved her sister very much, so she also treated Xiaoyu. He looked cheerful. And Xiaoyu is a person who is good at seizing the opportunity and pretending to be powerful. No, this has attracted many people to follow the trend, which is really normal. It's a pity that Xiaoling is bumping into her now. Xiaoyu, she took a few steps forward and narrowed her eyes slightly, is it fun to bully people? When Xiaoyu saw it was her, she looked at Chu Chen who was following her, and an ominous premonition arose in her heart. "Yexingling, why are you here?" she asked softly. "Didn't you have a falling out with Dong Yu?" "So, I am the emperor's artist now." Xiaoling really didn't want to come to the emperor, but now, this status is suitable for Luo. She had a cold smile on her face. What a coincidence, the manager is also Chu Chen. Everyone gasped and looked at Agent Chu who was following her. The only ones that Chu Chen, the powerful prime minister, could personally take charge of were the artists who were most favored and protected by the emperor's big boss Pei Xian. To be precise, the only sisters were the late Queen Xiaoling and Xiaoyu. Now, the actress named Yexingling has also won this honor? They began to look at her with new eyes. Suddenly, I don't know who said it, this morning, it was said that Mr. Chu accompanied a mysterious woman to get off Director Pei's Rolls-Royce. Could it be Yexingling? The whole crowd was in a commotion. Oh my God, could this person in front of me really be Pei Xian's new favorite? All kinds of eyes looked back and forth between her and Xiaoyu. No wonder she dared to provoke Xiaoyu. It turned out that she really had some talent. Unknowingly, the crowd took a few steps back to make room for the two of them. We all work in big companies and are well versed in the ways of survival. The showdown between the girls in the harem of a big boss is not something ordinary employees like them can get involved in. It's better not to get into trouble and wait and see how things develop first. Everyone automatically enters theater watching mode. Xiaoyu is so angry, these snobs. Just now, everyone was bravely vying to express their loyalty in front of her, but it turned out that they only dared to rub soft persimmons like Luo. Faced with such a tough opponent as Yexingling, everyone shrinks faster than a rabbit. And, Yexingling came in Brother Xian's Rolls-Royce. For a time, jealousy and a sense of crisis filled Xiaoyu's heart like poisonous snakes. This bitch, is she worthy? However, despite the resentment in her heart, she is still sweet and compassionate on the outside. She ignored the annoying Yexingling, turned her head, and looked at Chu Chen softly. "Brother Chu, we are all artists under you, and you just watch her target me like this." This ball kick was good, so let Chu Chen directly deal with Ye Xingling. Xia Yu believes that Chu Chen will definitely settle this matter. For more than 2 years, Pei Xian has raised countless women outside, and it's not like there are no women who have gotten into that Rolls Royce. Every time she had a conflict with those Yingying Yanyan, Pei Xian and Chu Chen always stood by her side. Who called her sister Xiaoling? Xia Yu was full of confidence, a smile of victory was about to bloom on her lips, and she was waiting for Chu Chen to teach Ye Xingling a lesson and let her understand her identity. Unexpectedly, Chu Chen said this time, "You better resolve matters between women yourself. He is too smart to want to swim in this muddy water. There may be a few women who can get into that Rolls Royce, but except for the late Queen Xiaoling, the ones who can stay in Pei Xian's house are definitely Ye Xingling in front of him. Only one. Even Xia Yu couldn't get that kind of privilege." Chu Chen knew very well that he must not treat Ye Xingling with the same attitude he treated those women in the past. Xia Yu didn't expect his answer and was stunned for a moment. However, she is an actor after all, and she showed a just right sad smile in an instant. "Really, then Ye Xingling, bullying people is not fun at all. Why are you bullying me? Do evildoers complain first?" Xiaoling sneered, "Why did I bully you? Luoluo and I are discussing the use of the recording studio, and it seems to have nothing to do with you." Xia Yu said, "Why are you helping Luoluo to stand up?" She looked at Xiaoling with innocent eyes, feeling aggrieved. "I feel pity for him." Xiaoling still sneered, "Luoluo is my friend, and it is natural to stand up for your friends. Xia Yu, if you have friends, you can also call them over. If you call them all. I am waiting here." Her temperament has always been he is not afraid of anything, he gets excited whenever he encounters a fight, and he never takes it too seriously. Chu Chen wanted to rub his forehead next to him. Why didn't the boss like someone who could calm down troubles? Over there, Xia Yu bit her lip. Friend. She doesn't have many friends. The so-called sisters, best friends and partners are just her trying to follow others or others following her. Everyone gets what they need. Who can be summoned at this time? Her face turned slightly pale. "Ye Xingling, don't bully others too much. Is this going too far?" The big hats come one after another. Xiaoling was so free that she looked at her with clear eyes. "I can't bear such a crime, Xia Yu, I hope you won't bully others too much. Luo has already said that he will finish recording the song before 1 o'clock, so he won't delay you. Time. Are you sure you still have to clear out the place?" End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 392. Chapter 392 The War Between Girls. I made an appointment for 1 hour, but the staff had to clear the venue in advance. Xia Yu looked weak, but her words were not weak at all. "I have always followed this rule when recording songs, everyone knows it." Xiaoling sneered, "Who made the rules?" Xia Yu's face turned pale and she looked at her with a bit of grievance, as if she was arrogant and aggressive. The assistant next to her also had a bad look on her face and was about to have a fit. She glanced at Chu Chen and then reluctantly closed her mouth. Luoluo gently pulled Xiaoling's sleeve. "Xiaoling, forget it. Forget it." She turned to look at Luoluo. "You're just going to let her bully you like this?" "I." Luoluo blinked aggrievedly and whispered, "Don't offend her, you can't afford to offend her." It turned out that Luoluo was worried about her. Xiaoling felt warm in her heart, and she didn't want Luoluo to be bullied by anyone. After thinking about it, her tone softened. "It's really inappropriate to insist on recording at this time. It's not suitable in the first place." Xia Yu answered softly, "Ye Xingling, Luoluo has already said it, so don't mess around." Xiaoling frowned. "Forget it, Xiaoling, I know what you mean. but don't offend anyone because of me, I will feel uneasy, Luoluo said. So Xiaoling sighed, okay, it's already lunchtime. It's hard to be healthy if you're hungry. Luoluo, let's go eat first. Luoluo bit her lip and said nothing, only nodded slightly. Xiaoling could see the unwillingness in her eyes, but she stopped insisting because she was afraid that things would get worse. Luoluo's manager Zhou Bin's face showed disappointment, but also relief that the matter was finally resolved. The passers-by, A, B, B, and D, who automatically entered the theater watching mode, came to life again, with disdainful looks on their faces. Tisk, what? I thought Boss Pei's new favorite could shake Miss Xiaoyu's status, but who knew that like other Yingying Yanyan, they all had to bow their heads in front of Miss Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu also had a flash of pride in her expression, and said softly, since you know the general situation so well, just pretend that what just happened never happened. You go, I won't embarrass you. At this point, who do you still want to show your magnanimity? Xiaoling narrowed her eyes and looked at her coldly, however, I also have my own rules. Xiaoyu was stunned. It's not convenient to record at noon, so give up your afternoon schedule to Luoluo, Xiaoling said. What? Xiaoyu and the people around her stared at Xiaoling in disbelief. Ha, that's so loud, someone spat disdainfully. Xiaoyu was startled at first, and then her face turned green and white. She had never been provoked like this before. Yes, Yingling, don't bully others too much. The afternoon schedule is mine, and I have to record a very urgent song. How can we let it go? Xiaoling laughed and said, Xiaoyu, your song takes up the whole afternoon, isn't it? I said that you are a studio singer, and it's true it only takes half an hour for Luoluo to record a song, but it takes a whole afternoon for you. Yes, Yingling, that's enough. Xiaoyu pretended to be weak again. Being teased in front of someone like this, she couldn't help being angry and lost her cool. Why do you talk to me like this? Who do you think you are? You deserve to ask me to give up the recording studio. Her high-pitched voice cut through the air, harsh and unpleasant. I'm indeed nothing, Xiaoling sneered, ignoring Luoluo who kept tugging at her sleeves anxiously. I just don't want to see some people playing bullying tricks and bullying my friends. Chu Chen, she turning around, he called the sullen agent, do you understand what to do? It's completely like a commanding dog. There was a subtle change in the expressions of the people around them. Not only had they never heard anyone speak to Xiaoyu like that, but they had also never heard someone speak to Chu Chen like that. Even Pei Xian was kind to Chu Chen and showed love to his subordinates. General's face. After Xiaoyu was surprised, there was a look of pleasure on her face. She probably felt that she did not know how to advance or retreat, offended Chu Chen, and was not far from death. Xiaoling didn't care at all. Either Pei Xian would change her agent or let her trample on Guang Chuchen's dignity. Could his current embarrassment be 1/10,000th of that of hers in the previous life? As expected, Chu Chen could bear it. He remained calm when being shouted at like this in public. He only advised, Miss Ye, why bother with this? Since Xiaoyu is in a hurry and can't afford to delay, I will find another recording studio for you in the afternoon. Luo, the same thing. It's good for him, as both parties don't want to offend. Xiaoling looked at him coldly, forgetting that after all, he was Pei Xian's dog, not hers. He didn't know that she was the Queen Xiaoling, he only thought that she was Pei Xian's new love. Normally, if she wanted to bully others, he would let her go, but Xiaoyu was the sister of Pei Xian's old love. Which one of them is more important in Pei Xian's heart? Chu Chen will never act rashly until Chu Chen knows clearly. Xiaoling snorted briefly, I want this shed. Chu Chen, if you think I can't control you, you can ask your master for instructions. Just don't let me wait too long, I'm hungry. When Chu Chen heard what she said, he bowed slightly to apologize and walked away a few steps to make a phone call. Everyone fell silent, waiting for the result of his call. No one expected that a small-scale conflict in the recording studio could become so big that it even alarmed Pei Zion. This morning, the news about a mysterious woman walking out of Pei Zion's Rolls-Royce has spread a lot. Everyone is speculating about the identity of the woman and how far she has progressed with Pei Zion. Now, the rumored heroine is right in front of her, wearing a light-colored elegant dress, which is worth a lot of money. Even with her income as a popular actress, she may not be able to afford it, and most likely it was given as a gift. She even had the confidence to conflict with Xiaoyu. Everyone looked at her with unpredictable expressions. Xiaoling knew that her words and actions just now would have many associations. But, what else does she care about right now? She already has a baby in her belly, and she wants to find a father for her baby to ensure its safety. If everything goes well, she will be pregnant with Pei Zion's child before long. It would be a good idea to use this conflict as a foreshadowing, hint at her relationship with Pei Zion, and give everyone some psychological preparation. After a while, Chu Chen came back. Lao Yang, he told the person in charge of the recording studio, give this studio to Lugo in the afternoon. Everyone was in an uproar, looking at Xiaoling with different expressions. Some were horrified, some were searching, and some were thoughtful. These staff members in the entertainment industry are all good people. When the matter has reached this point, they all know that it is no longer a simple scheduling dispute, but a question of who has more weight in Pei Zion's heart, Yesin Ling or Xiaoyu. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 393. Chapter 393 Queen's Lounge. Logically speaking, it should be Xiaoyu. Xiaoyu is Pei Zion's adopted child for nearly 20 years. Even if he lost favor for a while, isn't he favored again now? Xiaoyu has bullied many people. Even Pei Zion's bed partner in the past 2 years was not less angry with her, but Pei Zion never said a harsh word to her, but instead continued to indulge her. Regardless of the relationship between Yesin Ling and Pei Zion, even if they are a new love and a guest of the family, there is no reason to suppress Xiaoyu. But to everyone's surprise, the order Chu Chen brought back was biased towards Yesin Ling, and it didn't even have the slightest intention of being reconciled to Zinni. No. Impossible. Xiaoyu's face turned pale and her lips trembled. Brother Zion would not do this to me, no way. Xiaoyu, the boss asked me to bring you a message, Chu Chen said. What? Xiaoyu looked at him blankly. The boss said, don't let him see you making trouble for Miss Ye again, Chu Chen said without any emotion. If the order to sell out the recording studio just now doesn't explain the problem, this sentence definitely explains who holds more weight in Pei Zion's heart. Just now, those who had offended Yesin Ling with their words or expressions all fell silent for a moment. Many people couldn't help but soften their expressions, and even looked apologetic and ingratiating. Just kidding, she has the biggest backer behind her, and there are still many days to come. Who is willing to make a grudge against her over such a trivial matter? Xiaoyu's face turned even paler. She looked at Chu Chen and then at Xiaoling angrily. Finally, she bit her lip tightly and left with her people. The remaining people gathered around, including the staff of the recording studio and those who had just watched the fun. They all said they were sorry to Xiaoling and approached her carefully and gracefully. Xiaoling responded impatiently. Chu Chen observed his words and dismissed the person quickly. For a time, only he, she, Lugo, and Lugo's manager Zhou Bin were left. Let's go and eat, she said to Lugo with a smile. Lugo is a very simple girl, but not stupid. After witnessing the scene just now, he pulled her with some worry. Xiaoling, you and Pei Zion. The way she hesitated to speak made Xiaoling feel bad. She didn't care what outsiders thought, but a friend made random speculations about her relationship with Pei Zion, which made her embarrassed and embarrassed. She lowered her head slightly and said softly, "I live in Pei Zion's house now." Luoluo was shocked. "You, how could you, what about Li Lei? What about Boss Li?" She was incoherent and didn't know what to say. Oh my god, how could Xiaoling be such a person? How could she abandon such a good and powerful boss and fall into the arms of Pei Zion? Is there any misunderstanding here? She looked at Xiaoling longingly, her face full of worry and doubt. Just when Xiaoling was about to say something, Chu Chen had already spoken. "The restaurant is not far in front. Miss Ye, this is your first time here. The special dish here is honey-glazed oysters. It takes a lot of work to prepare the sauce. It is only available in limited quantities every day. 3 servings. Let's go there quickly, maybe we can catch up." Xiaoling turned to look at him. Chu Chen's smile was gentle and decent, as if everything was peaceful. Xiaoling suddenly felt irritable. Did he change the subject like this because he didn't want people to know about her relationship with Pei Zion? What did his master tell him beforehand? She felt an unknown fire in her heart and said to Luoluo, "Yes, it's just as you think. Pei Zion and I are in a relationship between men and women. I am already his." Luoluo was so anxious that she almost cried. How could this happen? Although Boss Pei is also very rich, powerful, and handsome, he looks so fierce and does not look like someone who can give Xiaoling happiness at all. Xiaoling frowned even when she mentioned him. However, Boss Li is different. Every time Xiaoling mentions him, there is endless tenderness in the corners of her eyes and eyebrows, and she is so happy that pink bubbles are rising in the air. What Xiaoling really loves is obviously Boss Li. "Xiaoling, please think about it again," Luoluo begged. "Don't be with Pei Zion, go back to the embrace of Boss Li, he is the one worthy of your trust for the rest of your life." Xiaoling slowly shook her head, smiling bitterly. Said word by word, "How could I go back? Luoluo, it's not that I fell in love with Pei Zion, it's that he wanted to repay the favor and refused to let me go. He is rich and powerful, what can I say no? What if one day if he doesn't want me anymore, I'll leave immediately and never look back." There was silence all around. Chuchen, Luoluo, and Luoluo's agent Zhou Ben all looked at her with different expressions, which were very exciting. "Miss Ye." Chu Chen's voice was dry. Xiaoling glanced at him sarcastically. Why didn't she control her properly and let her reveal those shameful things? She didn't know how to explain it to her master? Also, in his previous life, he tried every possible means to cover up Pei Zion, coaxing her into being an underground lover for the rest of her life, and finally ended up with an unhappy ending. What else can you expect from him in this life? She is no longer the innocent little girl in her previous life, and she will not believe the lies that are said to be good for her. Nowadays, she doesn't mind at all whether this twisted relationship will be exposed. The only one who cares is Pei Zion. She was forced to do so. If word spreads and gets into any trouble, it will be his, not hers. She looked at Chu Chen and smiled happily. She wondered if his master would be as angry as him. Thinking about it like this, I felt sad again, all the pleasure disappeared without a trace, and for a moment, my mood waned. Unable to muster the energy to eat, Xiaoling turned around, left them, and walked towards the other end of the corridor. There were footsteps behind him, and it was Chu Chen who followed. "Ms. Ye," he called. Xiaoling ignored him and walked forward quickly. "Miss Ye," he called again, reminding her in a low voice, "Please be careful in your words and deeds in the future. Be cautious in your words and deeds." She sneered, "Get out." He frowned slightly, "Even if the boss favors you again, he will not tolerate you in public." "Get out," she shouted angrily at him. He stopped talking, but still followed her step by step with his eyes lowered. It looked like a loyal old housekeeper tolerating an ignorant and angry young lady. There were people coming and going in the corridor. Many artists and staff saw the scene and couldn't help but take a second look. Xiaoling's heart became even more angry, so she simply walked away and moved forward. I walked on instinct without paying attention to the direction. When I came to my senses, I saw a familiar crystal glass sliding door. The extremely exquisite ice cracks, interspersed with subtle gold and silver textures, are beautiful under the corridor lights, and every detail is exquisite. In her last life, it was a special lounge that belonged to her, the Queen Xiaoling. By some strange coincidence, she reached out and pressed the button next to the door. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 394. Chapter 394. The room reserved for her. That is a fingerprint lock, clean and cold. The red light flashes, and a sweet prompt sounds, "Sorry, your fingerprint was entered incorrectly." Xiaoling was startled and tried again, "Sorry, your fingerprint was entered incorrectly." She then remembered that she was no longer that person. The emperor was once her home, but now it was just a gorgeous prison. No matter how big or luxurious it was still cold. Ms. Ye Chuchen interrupted her thoughts, "You have no permission to enter this lounge. There are other lounges downstairs. If you are tired, I will take you to sit there." "Who is using this lounge now?" Xiaoling asked. "No one," Chuchen said briefly, obviously not wanting her to continue asking questions. "This way, please, I will take you downstairs." Xiaoling looked at the crystal sliding door, lost her mind for a while, turned around, and was about to leave. "Heh, isn't this Ye Xingling?" a familiar sweet female voice. Xiaoling turned around and saw Xiaoyu, who was still wearing embroidered clothes, with delicate eyelashes and delicate and charming skin. "Why is she here?" Xiaoling glanced around with some confusion, and then realized that the door of the room 1803 next door was open, and Xiaoyu's stylist and assistant were coming out of it carrying large and small bags. "Is your lounge next door?" Xiaoling asked. If she remembered correctly, this floor was full of lounges for top singers, and there were only 3 in total. Being able to live here is a symbol of the emperor's most distinguished singer. Many popular celebrities have sharpened their heads and broken their heads trying to occupy a lounge on this floor but failed. And Xiaoyu, a recording studio singer who relies on post-production to make up for her shortcomings, actually occupies one of the 3 studios. Yes, Xiaoyu raised her chin slightly and looked at her mockingly, "This floor is not where you came from, why don't you get down quickly?" Xiaoling frowned slightly and asked Chu Chen, who is using the other room, "Could it be that the emperor changed the rules and now this floor is no longer a symbol of status, and there is no longer so much style and elegance?" From Xiaoyu's tone, it doesn't sound like him. Chu Chen glanced at her, "It's Li Yingchen." "Oh, it's her, a diva-level female singer, the emperor's first sister. It seems that these 18 floors are still very particular, but this can allow Xiaoyu to get a place, and I am afraid it is not strength." "Xiaoyu," Xiaoling finally couldn't hold back and advised her, "It's not easy to take things that don't belong to you. Some people can hold you up high, but they can also make you fall down hard. Wait. By then, it's too late for you to know the pain." This is what she has learned from the past and speaks from the bottom of her heart. She didn't know why she said this to Xiaoyu. She had already decided not to care about this sister, right? However, no one knew Pei Xian better than her. His love was like a mirror and heaven and were just a thought away. She had already paid the price and didn't want Xiaoyu to follow in her footsteps. Xiaoyu thought about it, thinking she was being sarcastic. "Ye Xingling, are you jealous? No wonder you are angry. There are only 3 lounges on this floor. Brother Xian will only give them to the people he cares about most. I'm sorry, I don't have you." Xiaoling's face turned cold. She already regretted talking to Xiaoyu so much. Not wanting to engage in unnecessary verbal disputes, she frowned slightly and said, "I borrowed it." "Are you going to go downstairs to another lounge?" Xiaoyu turned sideways and let her pass. "Wouldn't it be better if it was like this earlier? You don't even have to look at whose room 1801 belongs to. How dare you take advantage of it? Didn't Chu Chen say that there is no one in 1801 now?" Xiaoling stopped, turned around, and asked Xiaoyu, "Whose room is it?" Xiaoyu smiled, "Of course it belongs to my sister." Xiaoling. "Who else besides her?" Xiaoyu tilted her head. "Yes, Ling, what does it matter if brother Zi Hung values you? Your weight in brother Zi Hung's heart will never be comparable to that of my sister. Only my sister is incompetent. Instead, even if she dies, this room will be reserved for her, and you, the living person, can only go to the lower level downstairs." Maybe it was because there were few people present, or maybe it was because he was protecting his sister. At this time, Xiaoyu didn't speak as restrained as usual. She peeled off her pitiful skin, revealing a somewhat aggressive tone. But she always knows how to step on others. Since her rebirth, Xiaoling has been wondering, who is the person Pei Ziyan loves? Could it be that the glamorous Xiaoling, the butterfly in his dreams that he raised with his own hands, was not the real her? Otherwise, why was he so ruthless and cruel to mute me when he didn't know who she was? And yet he indulged me so much after knowing that she was Xiaoling herself. He left a lot of things for Xiaoling, including his untouched home photo wall and this lounge in front of him. But, what have you done for Yesin Ling? Xiaoyu looked at her quietly, with a faint smile on her lips. That smile stung Xiaoling. She was already in such a miserable state and didn't want to see someone stepping on her head to show off. Remuneration is not overnight, and slaps in the face must be face to face. This is the principle that Xiaoling has always believed in. She turned to look at Chu Chen. "I want this lounge." "Miss Ye," Chu Chen raised his eyebrows slightly. "I said, I want 1801." She emphasized her tone and was very impatient. "The boss has long ago ordered that no one should touch anything belonging to Xiaoling." Chu Chen said, "The deceased is the most important. This room is a memorial. Even Xiaoyu is not allowed to enter. Miss Ye, please don't make things difficult for me." Chu Chen persuaded her patiently and stood still. Xiaoyu's smile deepened. "Yes, Ling, don't you know that the sky is the limit? This matter involves my sister. Do you think Chu Chen is qualified to make the decision? I think you should go down as soon as possible to save yourself from not getting the room and making people laugh. Not to mention, it also offended Brother Zion." Xiaoling sneered. How many things did she do to anger Pei Ziyan? Not bad for this one either. "Call Pei Ziyan and tell him I want this room," she said to Chu Chen. Chu Chen frowned. "Miss Ye, please forgive me for not obeying my order. You have just come to the emperor, and you don't know what Xiaoling means. It is the boss's evil doing. Even if it is you, please don't touch it." Xiaoyu laughed softly, looking like she was watching a good show. Xiaoling became even more irritated and simply stretched out her hand. "Bring me the phone." Even though she had signed the contract with the emperor, Pei Ziyan still didn't plan to equip her with a mobile phone. Now, she had to borrow Chu Chen's. Since he didn't dare to say this to Pei Ziyan, then let her speak for herself. Chu Chen didn't move. "Bring it here," Xiaoling said angrily. "Chu Chen, do you think I can't find the phone or something? When did I need your permission to call Pei Ziyan? Do you believe it or not, based on this alone, you can off your master." End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 395. Chapter 395. Her Willfulness. Chu Chen lowered his eyebrows and remained still. Xiaoyu smiled, and her voice returned to its usual softness. If he hadn't stopped you and made you go to my sister's lounge without risking your life, that would have really off brother Zion. Xiaoling stared at them, her chest heaving and speechless. Okay, very good. After a long time, she gritted her teeth and turned around to go downstairs. She couldn't believe that she couldn't find the phone. Having only taken a few steps, she bumped into someone with a gentle chest and a black silk cotton shirt, which made the tip of her nose hurt. A pair of dry and warm hands held her firmly, and above her head, a deep male voice sounded, "What's going on? Who bullied you?" Xiaoling covered the tip of her nose and raised her head. When she saw that familiar face, she almost wanted to cry. "Akin." She sniffed aggrievedly, "Please lend me the phone." Feng Kun didn't ask why, he took out his mobile phone and handed it over. The silver-gray metal body carried his body temperature, holding it in his hand with a heavy weight. "Feng Kun," Chu Chen's face turned ugly, "how could you borrow her phone? Do you know what she is going to use the phone for?" Feng Kun glanced at him lightly, "Xiaoling can do whatever she likes." Chu Chen was choked by his words, but knew that he couldn't stop Xiaoling, so he kept her on the phone with a bad look on his face. The screen of Feng Kun's mobile phone was very large. Xiaoling dialed the familiar numbers with her fingertips and saw the silver-white characters pop up one by one. Next to her, Chu Chen whispered in surprise, "This is..." She raised her head to look at him and remembered that this number was reserved for the late Queen Xiaoling. In her previous life, Chu Chen had followed her for many years and had met her countless times. He lowered his head and continued to dial with concentration. After a while, the call was connected. Pei Zion's voice, "Hello, Xiaoling." Pei Zion, when it came time to call him, she felt a little guilty and short of breath. What if he refused? "Xiaoling," Pei Zion's voice was deep and mellow, and he seemed to be very happy that she called him. The tail tone rose slightly with some joy. "What's wrong? You called me suddenly." "Pei Zion," she hesitated, then said, "I want 1801. "What?" He didn't understand, but said quickly, "No problem, you can do whatever you want. Ask Chu Chen to do it for you." "Does he know what he promised?" Xiaoling's heart skipped a beat and she simply said, "What I want is the restroom where Xiaoling used to be, upstairs from Feng Kun's recording studio. I also want you to remove all the photos of Xiaoling in the company, as well as the used tables and chairs, Xiaoling's favorite flowers, Xiaoling's specified wall and carpet colors, all of them will be replaced." "Xiaoling, what's wrong with you?" Pei Zion didn't agree immediately, but asked her. "I don't like those." "Pei Zion, I don't like it. It would have been better if she didn't make this call." Once she did, she discovered that the entire Emperor's office building was filled with traces of her previous life. At that time, she was really a very picky person, will have the entire decoration redone even if one of the moldings in the corridor is not to his liking. Emperor is Pei Zion's, but what fills her from the inside out is the style of her previous life. One scene at a time, stabbing the heart at every step. Now that she is Yesin Ling, she does not need to keep these things to remind everyone how much Pei Zion loves a dead woman. Soon, she will have a baby. If this baby is destined to grow up in the Emperor, then, it is best to let everyone know from now on that she, Yesin Ling, is superior to Xiaoling. Only if her position is secure can her baby be safe. "You used to like it very much," Pei Zion said. "I don't like it now, not at all. I don't want to face the relics of a dead person all day long." "Pei Zion, Xiaoling is dead." "Dead?" She gradually became excited. "Why, what he saw was always the past." Chuchen, Xiaoyu, as well as Xiaoyu's agent and assistant, all looked ugly when they heard her talking on the phone. She is probably the only one who can say that Xiaoling is a dead person in front of Pei Zion. On the other end of the phone, the man was silent. Xiaoling's hand was holding the phone tightly and she was breathing heavily. Finally, he spoke, I don't like you talking about yourself like this. Then don't let me live like a dead person. She calmed down. Xiaoling, my Xiaoling. He murmured her name like an inaudible sigh. You are the one who dares to be so willful in front of me. That's all, as you wish, everything you had before, just take care of things yourself. He agreed. Xiaoling breathed a sigh of relief, but she didn't feel very happy. It was like she had fought a war and won, but was very tired. After hanging up the phone, she said to Chu Chen, open this room, redecorate it, and give it to the emperor's best male singer. She no longer wants this room. In her previous life, her status and strength were worthy of it. She is far from that popular now, and settling here is just a source of criticism. Before Chu Chen said anything, Xiaoyu could no longer stand. Yes, Yingling, don't pretend to pass on the imperial edict. How could Brother Xian allow you to move this room? It belongs to my sister. Her voice changed the tone, her expression was distorted, and she was no longer as calculating as before. Xiaoling was stunned by the resentment in her eyes. This time, it was sincere and not fake. Has her acting skills improved again, or is her eyesight getting worse? In short, Xiaoling would not believe that she had any good intentions. The words she said that drove Xiaoling to death are still in her ears, and it is still painful to think about it now. Xiaoling looked at her and said, how can a person like you care about your sister? Don't always use her name to gain sympathy. Let me tell you, I don't do this. You, Xiaoyu glared at her, her delicate little face becoming more contorted, vicious and ferocious. Yes, Yingling, do you think you are qualified to compete with my sister just by having a room? Let me tell you, you can't even compare to one of her fingers. If you don't deserve it. Whether I am worthy or not is not up to you. If it weren't for the events in her previous life that left a deep impression on Xiaoling, looking at Xiaoyu's performance at this time, Xiaoling almost thought that she had wrongly blamed her, and she was a useless person. A picky good sister. Xiaoyu said nothing more, stared at her for the last time, turned around and left. Xiaoling breathed a sigh of relief as she walked away so neatly. Although I had long decided to treat her as a stranger, the sisterly relationship that lasted more than 20 years in my previous life finally came to such an end that every time I faced this former sister, I would say that there was no wave in my heart possible. Xiaoling. Feng Kun looked at her worriedly. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 396. Chapter 396. Old Expert. Xiaoling shook her head, indicating that he was fine, and looked at Chu Chen again. This was not the place to talk. Feng Kun understood and invited her to his office, but turned Chu Chen away. With the door closed, the quiet sound-absorbing wall and the thick and soft carpet separated another world. Feng Kun invited Xiaoling to sit down and brewed a cup of biluakun for her. The fragrance of the tea lingered, which gradually relaxed her mood. I'm sorry, I forgot the time while doing music in the morning and that happened to you, he said. She smiled, nothing. By the way, why did you go to the 18th floor? I didn't see you when I came out after making music. I heard someone said you went to the 18th floor, so I went up to take a look, Feng Kun said. You are quite well informed. Feng Kun glanced at her. I can't help it. You've made such a big fuss. It's hard for me not to think clearly. In the entire emperor, there are only a few people who dare to quarrel with Xiaoyu. If you dare to shame Chu Chen, you will definitely. It's the only one. Xiaoling became upset when she mentioned those two people. She leaned on the sofa with her arms and felt weak. Feng Kun asked, why, haven't you always doted on that sister? Why did you quarrel with her so well? I have wanted to ask you for a long time. It seems that since you were reborn, you don't like to see her much. Also, you tell her who you are. In the previous life, after Xiaoling was imprisoned, Xiaoyu showed her true face. No one knows these things. In Feng Kun's eyes, they are still a pair of sisters with a harmonious relationship. Xiaoling didn't want to tell him those dirty things, so she turned away and said, "We have been separated for a lifetime, so they are still sisters." Maybe her voice was too muffled and Feng Kun noticed something. He didn't ask any more questions and just said, "That's fine. One less person knows and the risk is small." "Xiaoling, I still say the same thing, be careful with your sister." He reminded Xiaoling the same thing in his previous life, but unfortunately she didn't take it to heart at that time. Thinking about the past, Xiaoling smiled to herself. "When you said she had complicated thoughts, why didn't I believe it?" "That's because you dote on her," Feng Kun said lightly. "When you dote on someone, you always feel that everything is fine." Favor. Xiaoling recited this word silently in her heart, and the pain spread bit by bit. Why do you spoil her like this? She treated Xiaoyu so well, she wished she could give her all the stars and moon in the sky. Why did Xiaoyu but hate her to the core? She was in a trance for a moment. When she came back to her senses, she found Feng Kun looking at her. She concealed her mood and said, "Xiaoyu is too ostentatious now, and it's not all because of me, but also Pei Zion. Maybe one day, the higher she climbs, the harder she falls." "Have you noticed?" Feng Kun tapped the table with his clean fingers. "Xiaoyu looks a lot like you now." "Like me? I mean, the old you." Feng Kun thought for a while. She wasn't like this before. She was pitiful, weak, and fragile, but it's different now. She is becoming more and more flamboyant and arrogant. "Act like you did before." Xiaoling smiled bitterly. Maybe because she died and Xiaoyu finally got her wish and showed her true face. Or maybe Xiaoyu thinks that this way she can get more favor from Pei Zion. Pei Zion likes beautiful and willful children. As for whether that person is Xiaoling, even Xiaoling herself doesn't know whether it matters. Xiaoling said, "No matter whether she looks like me or not, she still hates me." Feng Kun raised his eyebrows in surprise. "I told you to be careful about her, but you were too careful. Why, it seems like there's a lot of trouble." She bit her lip and said nothing. "She is your sister after all," Feng Kun said. "There is a saying that when you miss someone, you will turn yourself into her. Xiaoling, although your sister has a lot of thoughts, she may not be without you in her heart." "How is that possible?" Xiaoling retorted without thinking. "If Xiaoyu had her in his heart, he would be in trouble. Who used such vicious words to humiliate her, provoke her, and tell her to die?" "Xiaoling, don't go from one extreme to the other." Feng Kun still needed persuasion. Xiaoling shook her head. "Stop talking, Akin. Everything about Xiaoyu is in the past. Just be a stranger in this life." He then said nothing more and started talking to her about other topics. "As for the doctor who will do your pregnancy test, I will soon contact you. This matter is of great importance and you must be careful," Feng Kun said. "Pei Zion's status is noble and he is not someone who can be offended casually. Those who can achieve the position of attending doctor are usually considered to have achieved something in society. They are not stupid and are unlikely to take such risks for money." At first, Feng Kun's progress was not very smooth. Later, after careful investigation, he visited an old expert from Huaxin Maternal and Infant Hospital. The old expert adhered to the traditional style of the older generation, was honest and upright, and had excellent medical ethics and skills. More importantly, he was not afraid of power, hated evil as much as hatred, and could not rub away any sand in his eyes. He told the old expert the love story between Xiaoling and Li Lei. In the story, Pei Zion is described as a big devil who beats mandarin ducks, and he tells the old expert that if Pei Zion finds out that this is Li Lei's child, then the child will be forcibly aborted by him. The old expert was so angry that he slammed the table. Life is a very sacred thing. What he couldn't stand the most was the abortion culture among young people. What's more, the poor girl in the story was still forced to have an abortion. After confirming the authenticity of the story, mainly because Feng Kun was too sincere, got along well with the old expert, and was very eloquent, he also brought a photo of Xiaoling and Li Lei with whom they were affectionate. In addition, these people are all celebrities, and the whole story has been traced in news reports in recent years. The old experts couldn't help but believe it. The old experts decided to help the poor girl cover up the truth about the month of pregnancy. He asked Feng Kun to go to him every few days, waiting for him to arrange everything in the hospital and make sure there were no omissions. Such an old expert has a high status in the hospital and is much more convenient than the attending doctors with junior qualifications. Feng Kun thanked him profusely and promised to go to him in 3 days to confirm the news. You can show some symptoms of joy now, Feng Kun said to Xiaoling. When Pei Xian discovers that you are pregnant and wants to take you for a checkup, let him choose Mr. Zhang Kuoping from Huaxin Hospital. No matter what you use, no matter what method you use, whether you lose your temper or beg like a coquettish person, you must let him take you there. Xiaoling nodded with a solemn expression. I understand this is a major matter that affects the life of the child in her belly. There is no room for any mistakes. Even if she risks her life, she will not see another doctor. Feng Kun said warmly, you have suffered. He took out a few books and gave them to her. These are some precautions during pregnancy, to guide new pregnant women. I guess it is not convenient for you to learn relevant knowledge at home during this period, so I bought a few books and put them in the recording studio. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 397. Chapter 397, Call the Police. Xiaoling took it, feeling moved in her heart. Fortunately, I have you, Kun, you are so thoughtful. Feng Kun smiled and turned on the speaker, and melodious and soothing music flowed out like water. It was not a pop song, but classical violin music and piano, which was very suitable for prenatal education. His voice was still very gentle. You can have a good rest here. There is no need to record songs. We are not in a hurry. The most important thing is to have peace of mind and raise the baby. Xiaoling smiled calmly, moved her body closer to the sofa, and started reading the books. The more I read, the more nervous I became. Oh my God, the book says you can't take medicine during pregnancy. I was seriously injured some time ago. I don't know how much medicine I took. Will it affect the baby? She looked at Feng Kun for help. Her expression turned slightly pale. Feng Kun is currently single and has zero experience in this area. Fortunately, in the past few days, in order to help her raise a baby, she also checked a lot of relevant information. I asked the old expert, and he said that if the medication is taken 2 weeks before pregnancy, it doesn't matter. If the medication is taken 2 weeks later, it depends on what kind of drug it is. The child should have been born the night before the accident, Xiaoling said. The time I concentrated on taking the medicine should have been in the first 2 weeks. So, it won't have much impact. Getting Feng Kun's affirmative look, she felt a little relieved, but then became nervous again. But, in the 3rd and 4th weeks, I am still in the hospital for treatment, and I usually receive intravenous drips and the like. What should I do? I will find out for you what kind of medicine you were taking at that time, Feng Kun reassured her. Then I will ask the doctor whether it will affect the fetus, and I will tell you as soon as there is any news. Okay. Having no better idea, Xiaoling suppressed her anxiety and thanked him. She touched her upper abdomen with her hand and said to herself, the baby will be fine. His father is so powerful and healthy, so the baby will be strong and will not be affected by the drugs. It will be a strong baby. Feng Kun held her hand and gave her strength. She rested in the office all afternoon until Chu Chen knocked on the door and reminded her that it was time to go home. He said that Pei Xian would be waiting for her at home for dinner. Xiaoling didn't want to go back to that oppressive cage, but she had to go back. Although Pei Xian indulged her willfulness, it didn't include disobeying his will. The consequences of resisting were too serious for her to even try. When he got home, he indeed laid out red wine and candlelight dinner, and was well dressed waiting for her. The music was soft. He sat on a sofa covered with thick cushions and skillfully cut veal steak for her. His voice was low and hoarse. "How are you today? You had 2 quarrels with Xiaoyu." Xiaoling looked up at him. He has always been well informed. Chu Chen must have reported her today's itinerary to him in detail. Xiaoling was not surprised by this. What surprised her was that he said, "Xiaoyu." "You called her Xiao before," Xiaoling said. This time it was him who looked at her, his deep and unfathomable eyes making her heart skip a beat for no reason. He slowly handed over the cut veal steak. "Try it, the fillet you like is medium rare." Then he picked up her topic. "Before, I didn't care about the affairs between you sisters. It was because of you. Dote on her, she seems to be kind to you. But now I wonder, maybe that's not the case, huh?" The last word has a slightly raised nasal sound, making it sound low and dangerous. Xiaoling bit her lip. Did he see any clues? As for the discord between her and Xiaoyu, it seemed that the reason was also because Xiaoyu had a crush on him, so she hated her. In the last year of her previous life, she lived in embarrassment, and was ridiculed and humiliated by Xiaoyu. However, it was already in the past after all, and she did not want to settle this account anymore, because settling this account would mean, to open the wound that she had finally healed slightly. "You don't believe that I didn't kill Wang Jingguan, and she doesn't believe it either," Xiaoling said lightly, "so, I hate her." Pei Xian's eyes narrowed. His former fiancée was a taboo topic between the two of them. "It's now, and you're still lying? All the evidence points to you, and you admitted it yourself later." Yes, she personally admitted in front of him that she was the one who killed Wang Jingguan. However, it was just a broken jar that she could not explain. "So what if I killed the person?" She became angry and contradicted him. "You call the police, send me to the police station, kill me to avenge your fiancé." What he got in return was an extremely angry slap. Even after a lifetime, she still felt a dull pain, and the wound that had finally healed in her memory opened again. She shook her head and didn't want to say anything else. She once hoped that he could see the truth clearly because she still loved him and cared about him, but what about now? It no longer mattered who he thought the murderer was. She no longer cares what he thinks of her. Xiaoling raised the red wine glass, lowered her head, and was about to take a sip of the red wine in the glass. Suddenly she remembered what she read in Feng Kun's book today: it is best not to drink alcohol during pregnancy. She put down the cup and asked Zhou's mother to pour her a glass of warm water. Over there, Pei Xian stopped dwelling on the topic and lowered his head to cut the steak. His technique of cutting steak was very sophisticated, with calmness and elegance. On the silver plate, his favorite medium-rare sirloin steak was oozing with traces of blood, and he cut it into pieces with a knife, without moving. Xiaoling looked at the scene and suddenly felt dizzy. "Lately, my reaction to ecstasy has become more and more serious, and I can almost no longer hide it." She pushed the table with her hands uncomfortably, but unexpectedly, she knocked over the goblet placed aside, and the red wine in the glass spilled out, making a squealing sound. Xiaoling was at a loss as she looked at the red hair spreading wantonly on the snow-white table. Pei Xian got up at some point, walked to her, bent down and hugged her away. "Be careful, you're all dirty." His breath brushed against her ears, making her shiver. "Why are you so careless?" he said, "you are so clumsy." Xiaoling felt dizzy again, her body collapsed in his arms, and she said weakly, "I don't know, I just don't feel well." Seeing the blood, I feel a little dizzy. Steak can make you faint. Pei Ziyan was startled at first, then chuckled, how come I didn't know you were so fragile before? He kissed her long hair and picked her up. Xiaoling was startled and wanted to break away from him. He restrained her with his arms like iron, don't move. Xiaoling didn't dare to move. During this period of time, she discovered a terrible fact, that is, her resistance would only arouse more desire and excitement in him. Several times, she almost lost her mind. Want her? Xiaoling couldn't afford to take this risk, especially now that she was pregnant. She didn't want to lose this hard-won baby due to any accident. So, she just stayed stiff in his arms, letting him pick her up horizontally and walk to the bedroom step by step. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 398. Chapter 398 Concealment. So nervous that even when Pei Ziyan gently placed her on the bed in the bedroom, she still didn't dare to move. Take off your clothes, he said. I'll get you something clean. Xiaoling looked down at the shirt she was wearing. There was only a small red wine stain in an inconspicuous place. If you didn't look carefully, you wouldn't be able to tell at all. However, the Pei family has strict rules and he has always been strict about it, so there is no reason for her to continue wearing this dress for dinner. However, Xiaoling is even more unwilling to change clothes under his nose. Who knows what will happen? Seeing him turn around and go to the walk-in closet to find clothes for her, she hurriedly jumped out of bed and said, I'm going to take a shower. He entered the bathroom as if he was running away. She locked the bathroom door. Every time when she covered herself up tightly, Pei Ziyan looked bad. But for some reason, he never stopped her and never really violated her. Often, Xiaoling would wonder, when did he become so restrained and abstinent? She was already the forbidden wife in his cage, the fish on the chopping board. No matter how much he tortured her, she could not escape from his grasp. On the contrary, it was such gentleness and patience that made her uneasy. However, she would never dare to ask him about this issue. It would take one day at a time. As long as the status quo was maintained, the baby and she would be safe. Who would think he has too many good days? Pregnant women should not sit bath for too long. Xiaoling finished the bath as quickly as possible, took out a set of pajamas from the small closet in the bathroom and put them on. This set of pajamas was customized from a famous European brand. When the catalog came last month, she chose the most conservative one without hesitation. Pei Ziyan's face was gloomy, but he still followed her wishes and made the order. Main cotton pajamas for home use with upper and lower parts, long sleeves, and trousers, buttoned to the neck meticulously. Xiaoling walked out of the bathroom. The temperature difference between the inside and outside made her shiver slightly. Then, she saw Pei Ziyan sitting on the edge of the bed, twisting an unlit cigarette between his fingers. The clothes he found for her were at hand. It was a large home blouse, embroidered with extremely beautiful and complicated dark flowers. It was her favorite style in the past. Have you finished washing? His voice was low and hoarse. Xiaoling nodded and stood by the bathroom door. The smell of cigarette smoke made her uncomfortable and she didn't move. Come here, he said. You put out the cigarette, she said. He frowned slightly, but still followed the instructions and put out the cigarette and opened the window to diffuse the smell. You don't plan to sing well now, so why do you mind the smell of smoke so much? He asked. I don't like smelling it, she said quietly. Even if she can't tell the world that she has a baby in her arms yet, she will create the healthiest environment possible for it. Pei Ziyan didn't pursue it further, sat her down, took a large white towel, and wiped her wet hair. Familiar techniques and strength. Back then, when their relationship was good, he liked to do this for her, treating her like a beautiful and exquisite doll. The difference was that she was so happy at that time, accepting all his care without any worries, and even being a little temperamental. Sometimes she thought he was too heavy here, and sometimes she thought he was too light there. In fact, no one is better than Xiaoling knew better that his technique was so comfortable and suitable, but she just liked the feeling of being pampered and pampered by him, as if all her willfulness and unreasonableness could be forgiven. However, now, everything has changed. She was worried about the little life in her belly. The steak for dinner was not very appetizing, and she didn't know if the baby would be hungry. There was also the matter of medication during pregnancy. If Feng Kun didn't reply to her for a day, she would not feel at ease for a day. While lost in thought, Pei Xian said, "Are you not full for dinner? What do you want for midnight snack? I'll let Zhou Ma make it." Xiaoling came back to her senses and said, "Something lighter, porridge and kimchi." Pei Xian still wiped her wet hair gently, "So bland. You won't be able to keep up with nutrition." Xiaoling thought about it. She had eaten very lightly to avoid morning sickness some time ago. Now that she had successfully made Pei Xian think that they had sexed, it didn't matter if she had some unpleasant reactions. What's more important is that the baby has been wronged in the belly for a long time, and nutrition must keep up. "Then let's make some soup," Xiaoling said. "I haven't had crucian carp soup for a long time." "You didn't like eating these before," Pei Xian said, but he didn't object. "I probably don't have crucian carp at home. I'll have someone bring it from the old house. You can eat something else first to make up for it. This villa there are only two owners, he and Xiaoling, who live there. The ingredients they usually stock are their favorites. Things like crucian carp soup, which is not ordered even once in a year and a half, are not on the menu. It's different over at the old house. There are many Pei clan members living there, all of them are rich in wealth and have delicious tastes. The big kitchen over there is stocked with all kinds of ingredients." Xiaoling said, "It's too troublesome, so I won't use it. Let's change it to pork rib soup. I asked Mother Zhou to cook the ribs first, and then make fish soup when the crucian carp arrives. You can have some of both." Pei Xian was always patient with her. It was rare that she wanted to eat anything, so of course he would try his best to satisfy her. Xiaoling stopped talking and let him make arrangements. At night, the pork rib soup was served first. She felt uncomfortable after taking 2 sips and pushed it away. Then the crucian carp soup was served, and she couldn't stand the smell. For the sake of the baby's health, she reluctantly took a few bites, but couldn't help but push away the bowl and chopsticks. Pei Xian was very worried and repeated his old talk about calling a doctor. Xiaoling comforted him, "It'll take a few days. Maybe I just started working and I'm not used to it. I'm tired and have a bad appetite." Seeing Pei Xian's disapproval, she added, "I really don't like injections. Take the medicine and I promise to have a good rest these days. If it doesn't work, why don't you make an appointment with the doctor? If it doesn't improve in a few days, I have to see a doctor," Pei Xian said. Xiaoling nodded and got over the hurdle in front of her first. End of this chapter. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 399. Chapter 399. Why him? The next day, Xiaoling went to the emperor's office building as usual and met Feng Kun. Feng Kun told her that the old doctor had made arrangements. He would be the only one to attend the specialist clinic next Wednesday. If she went there at that time, he would definitely be the one to attend the consultation. A big stone in Xiaoling's heart finally fell to the ground. However, not long after, my heart started to worry again. What about the medicine I used to take? Feng Kun frowned this time. Xiaoling, this is what I want to tell you. You have to think clearly about whether to keep this child or not. I checked your hospitalization list and found that you have used antibiotics. Although this is not the most harmful to pregnant women, but it also carries the risk of damaging the fetus. Xiaoling's face turned pale. This is the result she has always been worried about, but she never expected it to come true. This child was not easy to come by, and she had gone to great lengths to save its life. Now, I'm told that maybe it has flaws. She began to regret, why didn't she listen to Lin Yunan's advice and use a substitute? If the paragliding accident hadn't happened, she would be happily and safely with Li Lei now, looking forward to the smooth birth of her little life. However, the accident changed everything. She is far apart from her beloved, and even their unborn baby is in many dangers. She believed more and more what Xia Moyan said. It seemed that she was really sentenced to death as a widower. So, will even unborn babies be affected? She felt that she was the most failed mother in the world. Other mothers could take good care of and protect their children, but she brought disaster to them from the beginning. She looked sad, and her thin, white hands gently touched her lower abdomen. Looking at her appearance, Feng Kun felt very distressed, but had no choice but to say softly, think carefully, maybe this child will have defects, or he may be lucky and healthy should he abort the child or give birth to it. This matter was so important that no one could help her make the decision, only she could think it through herself. However, it is so cruel to have such a heavy thing weigh on the shoulders of a girl who is already in so much pain. Xiaoling remained silent and sat on the soft sofa, her hands still caressing her belly. She maintained this posture all day long. She was so helpless and hesitant, how could she be willing to abort the child? However, what if it is not aborted and the child is born with a defect? If the child was born sick, why would she bring him into this world to suffer? Just for your own selfish desires? My heart felt like it was being burned by a raging fire, and it ached tossing and turning. She was in a daze and didn't know how she got home. She had a hasty dinner and didn't even hear what Pei Ziyan was talking to her clearly. She washed up as if she was sleepwalking, undressed and went to bed. Pei Ziyan untied his tie, walked to the bed and sat down, and touched her forehead. Are you sick? She turned away uncomfortably and turned her back. Pei Ziyan said warmly, I'll call the family doctor. Her recent physical condition was not quite right, and he felt that he could not delay it any longer. What was going on? He had to let the doctor take a look. Xiaoling was agitated when she heard the words and became more sober. She turned back, half propped up, and looked at him. Pei Ziyan, don't ask for a doctor. No matter how much you don't like injections and medicine, you shouldn't make fun of your health. Pei Ziyan frowned. You promised me to take a good rest, but the more I rest, the less energetic I become. She half lowered her eyes. Pei Ziyan, I hate you. The voice is very soft. Without him, she would be lying in Li Lei's arms discussing the baby. No matter whether the baby could be kept or not, there would be someone to face it hand in hand with her. As long as her child's father is by her side, she will feel at ease even if the sky falls. However, now, when all her reliance is lost, she can only curl up in this lonely and crisis-ridden cage, asking herself over and over again, what should she do? Pei Ziyan stood up and went to get the mobile phone placed by the bedside. It doesn't matter if you hate me, I don't care, he said, I just want you to be healthy. She got up from the bed and held him back to prevent him from making phone calls. I hate you, I hate you. Over the past few days, the resentment that had accumulated for a long time suddenly erupted, drowning her like a flood. Pei Ziyan, you think you are omnipotent, right? You think you are powerful and can dominate everything, right? Why do you force me to stay with you? Why do you want me to do something I don't want to do? Pei Ziyan, let me go. She was yelling and hysterical. Pei Ziyan's expression suddenly turned gloomy, his face tightened, and he said nothing. She scolded him repeatedly, with tears in her eyes, and punched him hard. Her sudden attack caught him off guard. It turned out that the tranquility of the past few days was just a whitewashed illusion of peace. He stretched out his hand and clamped her chin tightly, forcing her to look at him, Xiaoling, "Why? Just because I saved your life, just because the rest of your life can only belong to me." She shook her head, her pale face covered with tears, sobbed, and beat him again and again until she lost all her strength and cried until she fainted in his arms. Pei Xian slowly closed his eyes. After a long while, he gently laid her flat in his arms, let her lie down on the soft and comfortable mattress, and covered her with a quilt. Then he got up and went to the study. There was a pack of cigarettes in the study. He opened it, lit it, and smoked one after another. He only picked up the bad habit of smoking after she died. It was so painful during that time that he wouldn't be able to get through it if he didn't find something to numb himself. Later, when she came back, he thought he could quit. However, the slapping became even more fierce. Xiaoling. He bowed his head and buried his face in his palms. This is not fair. He had loved her for 18 years, 2 full lifetimes, but what about the other man? But it's only been 2 years. Why would she be so heartless as to fall in love with someone else? The soot fell from his fingers, the dim red sparks flickered on and off, and no one responded in the silent air. The next day, Xiaoling woke up. The mattress beside her was empty, neat, and cold. It seemed that no one had slept on it last night. She was a little worried. She didn't know what the consequences would be after treating Pei Xian like that last night. With uneasiness, she washed and changed clothes and planned to go out. Zhou's mother stopped her and said, "Ms. Yeah, my husband asked me to wait for you to wake up and then ask the family doctor to come to your home and give you a comprehensive examination." Xiaoling was startled, frowned, and said, "I don't need it." But it's hard to explain to the husband. Zhou's mother was very embarrassed. Besides, you really need to see a doctor. End of this chapter. Rebirth of the Entertainment Circle, Return of the Queen. Author, Xia Weining. Chapter 400. Chapter 400 Reunion with Li Lei. "Where is Pei Xian?" she asked. Zhou's mother said, "Sir, he stayed in the study all night last night and went out early this morning. When I went into the study to clean, I found that the whole room was filled with the smell of cigarette smoke." "Miss Ye, did you have a fight?" she cautiously asked. Xiaoling shook her head. "No, don't worry, Mother Zhou." Then she said, "I have to go out, and I just got some inspiration today to write a song." "Inspiration is always fleeting, Mother Zhou, don't stop me." "But, sir, I went to the company to find him and explain to him personally." Ma Zhou's face was full of hesitation. With Mr. Ye's uncompromising temper, if she knew that Miss Ye was disobedient, she would definitely get angry. However, Ms. Ye is also very stubborn. If she refuses to see a doctor, she just refuses to see a doctor. Her attitude is firm and there is no room for change. Zhou Ma was caught in the middle and was in a dilemma. She was just a servant and couldn't take care of too many things of the two masters. After a moment of hesitation, Xiaoling had already opened the door and walked out. In the small garden in front of the door, there were no cars parked as usual. Xiaoling went to find the driver, but the driver said, "Sir, I told you that you don't need to take you out today." It seemed that Pei Xian was determined to let her wait for the doctor at home. With a sullen face, she said to the driver coldly, "Send me to the company. When I see Pei Xian, I will explain it to him personally. If you don't send me there, I will go to the street and take a taxi myself." Her Porsche was still there parked at Luoluo's apartment. "I kept forgetting to drive over." The driver was helpless and couldn't really let her go to the street to take a taxi. In addition, she was going to the company and it was not a taboo place. After thinking about it, he agreed to send her off. The journey into the Emperor went smoothly. Xiaoling got out of the car and went straight to Feng Kun's office instead of going to the headquarters building to find Pei Xian. Feng Kun was already waiting for her in the office. The room was decorated warmly and comfortably, with aquatic green plants and soft music playing. She also made tea for her to calm her fetus and calm her nerves. "Why are you late today?" Feng Kun handed her the tea. "What, are you in trouble?" "Don't mention it," Xiaoling sighed. "I almost couldn't get out." She briefly told the story about Pei Xian's insistence on her seeing a doctor, and said very sadly, "It's only Wednesday, the day after tomorrow, and it will still be delayed for 2 days no matter what. I have to go to the hospital. What should I do if he goes back tonight and forces me again?" Feng Kun also found it a bit tricky. After thinking about it, he said, "You can sleep in the recording studio tonight. I will accompany you and tell others that you work overtime when an artist works. Day and night are reversed. She is taken care of so well that she gets up on time every morning and dusk. Sleep. Occasionally, you should stay up late once in a while." Xiaoling laughed. "That's just right. When I went out in the morning, I told Mother Joe that I was inspired today and my mind was full of music. Then I'll take advantage of my full state to compose songs all night long." Feng Kun also smiled. The two were old partners for many years and had a good understanding of each other. They pretended to make music in a decent way. Pei Xian sent people to check on her several times and saw that she was very involved, so it was not easy to disturb her. His Xiaoling is pretty easy to talk to in other things, but she is very dedicated to music. Anyone who disturbs her while she is making music will definitely irritate her completely and turn her back. Hesitantly. When she was still a queen in her previous life, she was once interrupted by Pei Xian while recording a song. She was so angry that she ignored him for a whole week. They had a big argument last night, and Pei Xian didn't want to violate her taboo at this time and make the already bad relationship even more tense. So, Pei Xian went home alone. "I thought to myself, let's talk about seeing a doctor tomorrow." Seeing him leaving, Xiaoling and Feng Kun breathed a sigh of relief and stopped pretending to discuss the music score. Feng Kun put away the manuscript paper and said to Xiaoling, "You can make do with it today and sleep on the sofa. I will find you a blanket. I'm in the recording studio next door. If you need anything, just call me." It was getting late, and Xiaoling started to feel sleepy. After hearing what Feng Kun said, she climbed onto the sofa to sleep obediently. Feng Kun was not a workaholic like Wei Shaiyin, so he did not put a bed in the office. Even the blanket was newly purchased after learning that Xiaoling was pregnant, and the conditions were very simple. However, now that things have come to a point, there is no room for her to be picky. She wrapped herself in a blanket and drifted off to sleep. In a hazy moment, she had a dream. She dreamed that she was holding a beautiful little boy in her arms. Not far away, there was a man as handsome as the sun who looked at her tenderly, but it was as if he was separated by a layer of glass, and it was hazy and unreal. Lilei. In her sleep, she stretched out her hand. "I miss you." The layer of glass shattered and turned into specks of light in the sunlight. The handsome man walked towards her step by step and reached out to touch her hand gently. The heat coming from his fingertips was warm and real, making people nostalgic. She squeezed his hand tighter. This was the first time she had dreamed of him in so many days since the accident. She hoped she would never wake up from this dream. Lilei squatted down and slowly brought his cheek to her palm, gently and quietly. "Xiaoling, my Xiaoling," he murmured in a low voice. Even in her dream, his breath made her after him. Following instinct, Xiaoling moved closer to him little by little, feeling her body being embraced by a warm embrace. Lilei's gentle and pitiful voice rang in his ears. "Why are you so dishonest when sleeping? You almost rolled under the sofa." She muttered vaguely, she was in a dream anyway, so what does it matter whether she rolled off the sofa or not? "Don't leave." She leaned into his arms again. This dream was so real that she couldn't bear to let go. Okay, I won't leave, he whispered and kissed the top of her hair. Xiaoling, sleep a little longer, I will stay with you. She fell asleep peacefully in his arms, her breathing gradually became calmer, and everything became peaceful. I don't know how long I slept for, but I suddenly realized something and opened my eyes. Lilei, he was actually by her side. He turned sideways and held her in his arms, lying together on the soft sofa. For a moment, Xiaoling didn't know how to react. She blinked in confusion, looked at the handsome man close at hand, hesitated, and reached out to touch his face. Familiar lines, straight nose, beautiful lips, and those deep eyes like a forest in the morning light. It's him, it's really him. Lilei, Xiaoling whispered in disbelief, I'm not dreaming. The man in front of her showed a nice smile and looked at her without blinking. It's not a dream, Xiaoling, I'm here to find you. Xiaoling's nose felt sore and she was about to cry. He was here, he was finally here, and he did not leave her alone in the darkness, facing endless worries and fears. End of this chapter.